ruling the world. Mwahaha. All right, we should be live here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 303. This one is going to be all about margins. So we've done a couple child development things and motivational type things for the past couple weeks. Got to include a little business because that's what we do. We are also in the business of helping kids out. So
absolutely. And of course, in order for us to help kids out, we've got to be existent, keeping our doors open and making sure we're helping kids out.
Can't do it if we're not here, right?
Absolutely.
So, first of all, today is the inauguration. So I know a lot of you are probably watching that. You might be watching this on the replay. Regardless of which way you voted, whether you're an American or not, I think it's always a celebration when we have a peaceful transfer of power. That is something that doesn't happen in a lot of places. So today is a great day for celebration just of the process.
Yes.
But I think it's also important to acknowledge that, regardless of our political leanings one way or the other, we are potentially looking at some rising costs because of this. And I think actually, if you do get politically involved in it as you're running your business, you're actually doing yourself a disservice because that brings emotion into it. And emotion should be about the passion about why you're doing your business. But when it comes time to looking at your numbers and making business decisions, that's where we need some just rationalization, logic, and it doesn't matter what the circumstance is. The only thing that matters is what we do about it. And that's all on us.
Yeah. And, again, at the end of the day, just to take it a little bit to that next level from what you're saying, Mike, is what we do about is the mindset, our perception of things. It's not, just the frustration that comes with certain things or the happiness that comes with certain things. It's how we're going to perceive it, how we're going to make it beneficial for us, for our business, for our families, for our members, for everybody. So don't fall in the trap of getting too involved with some of your members with certain discussions, especially here in the next few weeks. Don't fall in that trap. That's first thing.
Yeah. Unless you are specifically marketing only to a specific segment of people who like the Buffalo Bills, don't talk about the other teams. Because you're going to alienate everybody else. I mean, if that's your market and you know it, that's one thing. But anytime you start taking sides, you're alienating another side. And especially in today's climate, at least here in the States, it may be different elsewhere. At least here in the States, things are pretty, at least on social media, they are pretty divisive. My personal relationships are not that divisive. We have normal conversations like normal people.
Yes.
But the internet is a weird space.
Well, I mean, again, person to person, face to face, sometimes it's hard for people to say exactly what's on their mind and what's in their heart, right? Where we're sitting behind the screen and we're putting things on social media or, sending things in text, it's easy to just kind of let it all out.
And it's also easier to misinterpret.
Absolutely.
On the reading end. Yep. I saw a meme the other day. It says, if you absolutely want it to be misunderstood, send it by text.
Yes.
So, let's jump into this a little bit. So I think our biggest concern as business owners is certainly going to be some of the rising costs that are going to be coming. Things like, COVID costs are things we've been dealing with for a while now, whether it's reduced capacity, increased overhead because of cleaning protocols or different hours or having to buy new cameras, whatever it is. COVID has definitely caused our ability to make money to be challenged in new ways. And then the other thing is, here in New York, we already have, or at least on Long Island, we already have, the $15 minimum wage. But I know for the rest of the country, as our country's leaders are now looking at raising that across the board. I know a lot of people are a little fearful of that. And I think it's, the only issue really with it is not that the minimum wage will go to $15. I think it's more the suddenness of it for some people, that it's jumping to 15, whereas in New York, we've had 5 years now for it to slowly creep up dollar by dollar and figure out how to deal with that.
Yes.
Hope for an M. Night Shyamalan. What is Howard Stern calls him Shyamalama Ding Dong. Yeah, I haven't listened to Howard Stern since like 1990 something. So
yeah, he's been in. Yeah, no, I haven't listened to him in forever.
Yeah, he actually used to own a house right next town over from me.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, when we look at things like minimum wage, I think there's a couple aspects to consider here. First is that if you're paying your people minimum wage, I would really encourage you to do better. You spend a lot of time, and when I say you, I don't mean you specifically. So this is shoe fits, wear it. This is for me too. I did this for a long time. We spend a lot of time saying that martial arts is the best thing you could do for your child. Our instructors are the highest trained child development specialists. Our program will change your life. In fact, it is so impactful that I pay my instructors minimum wage. Like, it's a misalignment in your words and actions. Not intentional, because you have to run a business too, but my first encouragement would be, if this has you thinking about how you're going to afford a $15 minimum wage, I would encourage you to find ways to afford more than a $15 minimum wage. It's not always easy, but that's why we're here today.
Yeah, and I guess, coming in on the other end of that, Michael, here in Georgia, our minimum wage is sitting at around $7.50, $7.85. I believe, no, $7.50 per hour. So a $15 minimum wage, we're almost looking at double, what we're paying. So I understand both sides of the conversations. We just need to figure out a way to problem solve versus trying to focus.
The sky isn't falling. It's just a little cloudy.
Yeah. Now, does it mean that you're going to have to increase your prices? Possibly. Does it mean you're going to have to, lay some people off? Possibly. there's not going to be a clear picture. So look at it this way. If you have 1 or 2 employees, going to a $15 is really not a huge jump. And again, it depends on what you're paying them right now. Okay, it depends on what you're paying them right now. It's not going to be a huge jump. However, for us here, we've got 9 employees. Right now, they're definitely not all getting $7.50 an hour. We have a couple of our Storm Team members who are working for us who are getting the $7.50 an hour. But again, we're talking about young teens who live at home, right? Yeah. So the $15 an hour, well, they're not going to get that because their cost of living is not that high. Now, will there be, again, just go along with me on this one, when they do increase the minimum wage, depending on the state, if they allow children or they allow young individuals at that age to work, will their minimum wage also be $15 an hour, or will there be certain stipulations that go with it, right? We don't know the answer yet, guys, right? So to give you an example, here in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, a person who is at school, like a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old who's got a work permit, you can pay them as low as $5.50 an hour. Okay. Now,
in New York, it's for us, it's the same for everybody, but the changes are what industry are you in and what region of the state are you in. So some industries can pay less.
Got it. So, again, there's certain things, or there's certain stuff that we have to pay closer attention to in order for us to make this as a not such a big deal. Now, again, if they do raise it, if it does go to $15 an hour, everything else is going to have to go up. Like, they're not going to just raise it $15 an hour, yet your housings or your the cost of living is going to have to go up too. You know what I mean? Like the food, the groceries, all that stuff will still have to go up.
You know
to
what?
Accommodate.
Having been through this in New York already, where we went from, what were we? We were, I think we were like 9 something an hour when we started this. That was the big fear, is that if you double everything, then everything else is going to go up. But that's not how capitalism works. Most of us, when you look at overhead, most of us look at, in small business anyway, you look at, oh, my rent, my staff, my this, my that, I have to pay the cleaner, I have to pay for the dumpster, I have to, you look at all these things, and then you do this calculation, and that's what you charge, maybe with a little built in for some profit. And that's something that a lot of us do or have done. And then as we set pricing structures, it's kind of this gut instinct about like, well, this is how much it kind of costs to run my business. This is how much I kind of think people will pay. And we have this wishy-washy sort of thing. A larger business, and I know that we don't fit exactly a large business model, but we can learn a lot from them because they have people who study this at very high levels. So there's a learning opportunity. We still have to have the figure it out, gumption. How does it work for us? What they do is they take all their overhead calculations, including, and I think here's where most of us go wrong, how much money we want to make. And that becomes your overhead. That's your minimum charge rate. Then they don't set their prices based on that. That's just how much they need to make to break even. It's just a data point. They set their prices based on what the market will bear. So if I want to sell you this pen and it costs $1.25 plus my time and all that, this is probably like a $40 or $50 pen. It's not just because they want to make 10% on every pen. They charge what the market will bear. And when we look at it this way, it's called margin-based business. And what happens is capitalism, which is the society we live in, like it or hate it, is based on not recovering cost, but on how much profit can I make? And the difference is the margin. So for the example of this pen, $40 pen, costs $1.87 to make. If minimum wage doubles, they don't raise the price on the pen because their costs are already covered in that margin. As long as that margin is met and they are profitable, that's what matters. And the difference is when you format your business based on profit, it's always like, this is, if there's a change, then I'm not making any money. And when you formulate it on margin, what happens is I'm always making the money I need. The only difference is how much I'm growing. And that's, I think, what people don't realize about some of the larger companies. When ExxonMobil a few years ago, it was a little bit after 2008. I forget when it was exactly, but this is when we were going through some tough times, and ExxonMobil was saying, oh, we took a 50% hit in our profit margin. And everybody was like, oh my God, the world is ending. No. In profit margin, that means every single executive got paid what they were supposed to get paid. Every single employee got paid what they were supposed to get paid. The only thing that changes was how much growth they were able to do that year. They could have taken 100% cut in profit margin, and they'd have been just fine. So when you start to think this way and look at profit margin rather than just, oh my God, I need to profit this much so I can live, that's not profit. That's overhead, right? And if you go back to John's discussion last year for profit first, these are the margins that we're setting up. Everything else is, you're paying yourself.
Yep. Yeah. So, one of the questions that came up with one of my coaching calls earlier, how can I do this? How can I have a quick calculation to figure out if I want to keep everybody and maintain what I've got right now? Like, they're not being greedy, right? They understand that everybody's going through rough times and everybody's going through, this pandemic has taken everybody by surprise. So my answer to them is do what we call simple math. Okay. How many team players do you have? Write that down. Calculate how much they currently make, given what you're paying them right now. Write that down. Calculate how much they would make if they were getting paid the $15 an hour. Write that down. Take the difference of both. When you look at the difference of both, you're probably going to realize the difference is probably maybe, I don't know, an additional, let's just say an additional X amount, because it's going to vary from school to school, right? But say the difference is $300, right? Because the difference is really not going to be that much depends on how much you're, like most of our team at our studio, they're anywhere sitting already between $12 to $15 an hour. So the difference is not going to be that much. And kind of like you said, if you're paying the minimum wage, you're not really providing the value that you need to be providing, starting with your own team members. So say if the difference is $300, just simply a simple approach is you're going to have to bring on 2 or 3 more people, right?
Yeah, it's not always about like, how do I cut to make these numbers? Sometimes it's more about how do I get more out of the team I already have?
Yeah. Some people said, well, should I add more classes? I was like, wait, stop. Why do you want to add more classes? That means more hours for your team. So their thought process is if they add more classes, they can bring in more students, which means it's going to help pay for the extra.
Now, in one sense, like here in New York, where we're still pretty locked down, that may make sense. For us, I think we have like 7 spots left in our entire school.
Yeah.
So adding another class may help with that, because
sure.
our margins on a class are huge. But yeah, I mean, if it's going to incur more cost than benefit, that might be
exactly
in the foot.
Just weigh out your options. So my solution to that individual is, have you raised your prices since the pandemic? And they were like, no. Have you sent an email out to your parents talking to them about, the cost or whatever? And they were like, no. I was like, well, this could be a good approach. I mean, $300 divided by the number of students you've got, you may be looking at a possible, 2% increase per member.
So I just ran some quick numbers here. So you said most of your people are making between 12, 15 an hour.
Yes.
So some of them won't even be affected by this, other than perception. So there is an element here of you're going to have to do a little bit of life coaching with your team when all of a sudden they were happy with $15 an hour because it was double the minimum wage. Now $15 is the minimum wage. Nothing else has changed in their life except perception. There's a little mindset coaching. But let's assume that all 8 of your team members have to go up by $3. I'm also going to make a wild assumption that all of your 8 team members work 30 hours a week, which is probably not quite true. And then there's 4 weeks or so in a month. Using those wildly assuming numbers, that's a difference of just shy of $3,000. In a school the size of John's school, $3,000 is not a heck of a, I mean, it's not insignificant. He's not going to go to the bathroom and come out with it. But
can you teach me how?
Right? If I could do that, eat more fiber. But I mean, it's not like a world-shattering amount of money. You can find $3,000 in a business fairly quickly. A business, the size of Skillz HQ. If you take the typical school who has, instead of 8 team members, maybe they have 2. You're talking $720 a month. Divide that by
4.
Hold on. Divide that by, I charge $187 a month on average. That's 3.5 students.
4.
I
mean, again, the reason I said 4 is because not all the schools live in a region where they can, charge $150 a month or more, right?
I'll debate that all day.
But, again, like, guys, slow the thought process down and start breaking things down a little bit. And
So
yeah,
let's assume you put on no students, but you already have 100 students.
yeah,
Raise everybody's rates by $7.
yeah. And that was the
Nobody's going to
simplest.
talk at $7. You should be
That was
doing
the
that every
simplest
year anyway.
approach. And that's the simplest approach that I gave everybody. If you're that worried, then it's time to raise your prices and also raise your members' prices. So I'm going to be honest with you. In our membership, we have it written that the tuition that they come in at is raised by 3% every year per cost of living. Okay. However, we never do that. Okay, we just don't do that. You know, it's easier to raise the prices on the new person that's coming in the door than to raise the 3% on everybody. So for us, it's easy to go back and send an email out to the parents saying, "Hey, parents, due to the current situation, we may need to raise the prices on all of us, or on you guys, and it's going to be around like 3% or 5% or whatever the amount is, right?" But that's the simplest way to do it. And 3% times everybody that we have will easily cover the difference. And this is if we just want to like stay where we are, like not worry about, raising, even raise the prices again to the newer people who are walking in the door.
So Tim has a comment here, about if I have to pay my employees more, I expect more. In essence, yes. And as an extrinsic motivator, they should be probably happy to do more. The mindset behind raising minimum wage, though, is not that. It's that's what you should be paying them anyway, because that's what it costs to live.
Yes. So in this situation,
in New York, where it's $15 an hour, yeah, you're sharing a single bedroom suite with 4 other people on $15 an hour. Mm-hmm. So it's not that you should be expecting more, it's you should have been paying that already.
Yeah. So Tim, in your situation, if the minimum wage is mandated and we do have to go to the $15 an hour, you can't expect them to do more. Ethically, you cannot expect them to do more. You cannot tell them,
come to you for a raise.
Yes, no.
This is what an employee is worth.
This is not a raise. This is your arm being twisted, or like I hate to phrase it that way. You're having to do something that, as an employer, you don't have control of. Okay, so
it's like almost the opposite of, I guess, when COVID hit and we let a lot of people out of contracts and stuff because it wasn't them, it wasn't us. It's just something you had to deal with. Now, that said, raising what you pay people, I would not necessarily expect more of my current employees. I would expect more of incoming employees, because now, it's still, and this is that mindset thing again, like it's still just minimum wage, but $15 an hour is something that lets people, for the most part, live. So this is their job now. This is their career. It's not that you're hiring some part-time person, paying them $12 an hour, $10 an hour, and they come in when they can, and then they say things like, "Oh, well, I have a family birthday, so I can't come into work." Now you're paying somebody who this is their job. So incoming employees, I would expect to be higher qualified, higher trained, higher levels of motivation, especially. Right now we're looking at this very tactically, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And first of all, guys, this was no secret. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but they've been talking about this for the past 5-6 years, that it's coming. We don't want to be reactionary in our businesses. But in a year or so, the pain of this will be gone, because you would have already figured it out. And what's going to happen is, in a year or so, you won't want the $15 an hour employee. You're going to want the $20 a month, right? An hour employee. And your business quality is going to reflect it. And because your business quality reflects it, your rates will reflect it, and it won't even be an issue. This is just a little painful moment we have to get through. And then once we're paying $20, $25 an hour, now I want a college graduate with a degree in education, which means I raise my rates again. Yeah. So I like, out of all of this, I really like John's suggestion of really breaking down that simple math to the point where it's a number you can deal with. I sit on the board for my HOA, and sometimes we start talking about numbers. And I guess being in business, if somebody says, "Oh, this is going to cost $100,000," I go, "Okay." It's not. I mean, I want to say it's not my money, but it is partially my money because I pay the HOA fees. But I look at the value proposition, and to me, in business, $100,000 over the course of a year is not that much. Everybody else goes, "Oh my God, $500 for this," and it's like, because they're not used to dealing in big numbers, and we have to really break it down until it's something they can comprehend. So if you're looking at, oh my God, I'm going from $7 to $15 an hour, and over the course of the year, that's going to cost me $40,000. Look, for a split second, $40,000 makes my heart go pitter patter because, that is a large number. When you can break it down the same way we break down goals. I want to have a school that looks like this with this many students and this much income, and it's going to have marble and gold on the, that's a big goal. But if you break it down until you get to the very first thing, which is, well, I have to start a corporation. That's $600. I can do that. It's the same methods that you apply to every other aspect of your life. If you're following all the mindset tips that John and I and Melody and Kelly are all dropping, you just have to get it down to a manageable first step. And then the rest, I'm not going to say it just happens, but
I mean, the rest takes its course based on the steps that we're going to take. And, a lot of times we stress over the unknown of the initial shock,
Yeah.
But again, if you just break it down and do simple math and figure out based on what you're paying right now in payroll or based on what you're doing right now, how much more you're going to need to just maintain where you are right now.
I'm rereading Tim's comment, just as you're speaking. I'm just looking at it and I'm rereading it. So the initial comment was, if I have to pay them more, I expect more. He never says he expects more of them. If I'm mandated to pay my employees more, I expect more out of me to lead them to get more return.
Okay. So again,
I don't know if that's a fully formed thought, but it's just something that struck me. If I have to pay them this much, I'm gonna get the most I can out of them.
Yeah. Again, through text, it's really hard to, because my understanding was I expect more out of the employees.
That's what I read at first too, and maybe that's what he meant, and that's possible too.
Yeah.
But just as I look at it, it just had me thinking, it's not their job to do more. It's their job to do what I hired them to do.
Yes.
It's my job to figure out how to maximize their efforts, how to maximize the business return on what I invested in hiring them. So it might be as simple as figuring out a more efficient way for them to do something that means they can spend more time on other opportunities, or delegating something a little bit better so that I can spend more time on making up that $720. And
absolutely.
I know we're coming just about up on time here. There's an interesting thought exercise that I forget because it's been a few years. Somebody used to do it in one of the martial arts industry groups. And about once a month, they would say, here's the thought exercise. There's a school that needs to make, and every month it would be a different amount of money and a different time frame. So for example, it might be, there's a school who needs to make $1,000 extra by the end of the month. There's 30 days left. Or there's a school that has to make $5,000 in 2 weeks in order to make the rent. So it'd always be a different number and a different time frame. And then everybody in the group would chime in with their ideas of, knowing that it's hard to make $5,000 at once, but you can make $1 5,000 times. Here's the list of things you could do within a week to make $5,000. So this goes along with the concept of the no-no meeting that we've talked about, where sit down with your team, you hired them for a reason, and say, guys, minimum wage is going up. You guys are all getting a raise. So now we have the next hour to figure out how we're covering that. And there's no such thing as a bad idea. There's just better ideas and worser ideas, and you get them all out there and you brainstorm. What are 10 things I could do to make $500?
Very good.
You'll make that money.
Very good. And, again, if you do have the team members that you think you have, or like the right team people in place, they will help you think through this.
Yep. And the cool part is once they make that 5,000 or whatever that nut is, get all those things in place. Now you've covered everything. Now you do the exercise again.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're 5,000 in the black. And then you do the exercise again, always varying it. Say, hey, I'd like to make an extra $1,000 in the next week. If we do it, I'll split half of it with you. What are the ideas you got? Because now it's profit. Now it's margin. And you can do whatever you want with margin. Your profit goals and your overhead have been covered. Margin is play money.
Find a way that you can possibly give them raises on quarterly basis based on how things work. And again, like they helped you go from what you're paying now to that $15, and now they helped you grow even more. Help them, give them part of that sharing.
It also gives them kind of that emotional ownership in your company.
Of course.
The as if. We want all of our employees to act as if they are part owner in this company.
Yes.
Doesn't always happen, depending on the employee or their position, but we want to encourage that.
Well, but I mean, again, depends on the employee. If you have this employee on your bus in that seat because they're really good at that, you're going to expect them to, stay into that area. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to take a person who loves kids' knowledge and all that stuff and have them to become a salesperson. Right?
Or the other way, you might find somebody who has a hidden talent when you start including them and go, why didn't you tell me that you can do this? And now all of a sudden you've got a general manager. Who knows?
Exactly.
So really, guys, it comes down to the difference between growth and survival. All of your expenses need to be handled at a minimum in your overhead, including projected expenses. Buffer those numbers because business has a way of doing that. You got the fuffs are always coming in here trying to mess things up for you. The fudge factor. So always have that in your overhead. And then don't think about like, well, this is how much I need to make, so this is what I charge. So this is how much I need to make. How much more than that can I charge? And grow your margins. The healthier your margin, the more resistant you will be to sudden changes like this. And then run these thought exercises. If nothing else, don't do it every day. Maybe once a quarter during your team meeting. Run this thought exercise. Pick a random number, random time frame, something fairly immediate and achievable. Think about our SMART goal talk from last time. But something achievable, realistic, but not simple either. Not like I want to make $100 in the next week. You just do that in a couple hours. And see what they come back with. You might be surprised. And if you've got 5 team members, you really only need one good idea out of each. So if they each give you 10 ideas, you take the best.
Absolutely.
And think about not how do I cut back so that I can make payroll when minimum wage goes up or when COVID causes another price increase, but how can I move forward to charge more and cover that, or to make more? You don't always want to charge more. Sometimes you want to charge more often or get more customers. There's different ways to do it.
Yes.
Let's see. Clarification. I will be hiring people with more experience. I have to do the CPNS course. The goal is to pay the employees so they can focus all their efforts on my business. Yeah, and that's it, Tim. I mean, you're on the right track there. It's an opportunity. If you're paying more, you can certainly expect more with that. Like, hey, guys, but it's not necessarily that you're expecting more. You're also providing them more opportunity. So I would phrase it that way, because no employee wants to hear, well, guess what? Now you have to do more. We've all heard that. Congratulations, you got a promotion. It doesn't mean any more money, but you get this business card, and now you get to do Bob's job too. Nobody wants to hear that. But if you tell me about, well, here's more opportunity for you, even if it means I have to do more and do Bob's job, it feels better. So now you're providing opportunity for them to do the PNS course or to have all these other impacts. So I like that way of thinking about it. All right. And we went a little over. We're still in that 30-minute-ish mark.
Window-ish.
Yeah, ish. I used to do a broadcast called Weekly-ish because we could never pick a day, and we would just do it every week or so. Weekly-ish broadcast.
Got it. All right, guys.
If you need help with this, of course, we got to put that shameless plug. If you need help with staying on the growth course or of covering this, and yes, it is going to cost you money, but you got to invest to get. This is why we have coaching. And this is the same mindset. If I have to pay $450 more for my staff a month, I'm going to get 500 more out of them. Same thing with coaching. If you're going to pay for coaching, you can expect to get more out of it.
Absolutely.
And fairly immediately. That's not a large number in the grand scheme of things, even if it's that 5,000 number. Man, could you imagine charging $5,000 a month for coaching?
Sure.
Yeah. COVID expenses. Guess what I charge?
I got to clean my earpiece after talking to you.
The ideas come from the same place the money does.
Yep.
All right. On that note, thank you, Mr. Salama, for this wonderful topic. I think a lot of people are worried about it, and I hope we've helped a little bit.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Go enjoy your day. Crush your week. Do what you do best. Don't worry about the rest.
Go get it.